we will get Stan pulled up here. Stan, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to whatever day this is of this drastic cold weather. Right now, the first thing that I'd like to report to you is that as far as regular power outages go, the type of things that we would normally see on any day-to-day basis, throughout PSO, we have one customer out, and that's down around Idabel. So at this time, we're not working any what we would call normal day-to-day type outages. We are, just like yesterday, standing by to hear from the SPP if they move out of the current energy emergency alert level 2, where they currently stand. If you recall, it was just about this time yesterday that we got the word from the SPP that they wanted us to begin shedding load. They asked us to shed 96 megawatts. Then they called us back and asked us to shed another 96 megawatts. So by mid-morning, we had reduced our load throughout the PSO system by 196 megawatts. To do that, at the peak of our interruptions that we coordinated, we had about 50,000 PSO customers across the system interrupted. That got us to that 196 megawatts. And then within a few hours, they called us back and said, we're good. Things have stabilized a little bit within the SPP, and we no longer are calling for you to reduce load. So then we began restoring those customers. And it took a couple hours to do that. And in some cases, a little bit more. It was a little bit longer than we had hoped, that's for sure. And we're working on that. But we have not heard yet from the SPP. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, knocking on wood, and doing all that kind of stuff. I'm very superstitious. That we won't get into that higher alert level, the alert level 3 today. But again, conditions throughout the SPP have not changed a whole lot in the last 24 hours. So the possibility that we could see those type of coordinated scheduled outages is still a very real possibility today. And we're still asking all of our customers to do whatever they can to take whatever energy conservation measures they can in their own home. We know it's an inconvenience, but it's certainly helped a lot. So we appreciate that.
Stan, thank you. And I know you have another commitment, so if you need to leave, you can go ahead.
We're gonna first want to listen to the mayor.
There you go.
How his experience was yesterday.
Alex is going to go with us next, just on the service side. So let me pull him up.
Yes, good morning. So last night we did have an outage in North Tulsa that impacted about 300 customers. Relight started early this morning. Crews worked through the night to get everybody back on. This was due to an equipment issue as a result of the weather. Other than that, we are not experiencing any system issues or outages at this time. Our biggest concern remains with the limited availability of natural gas from our suppliers. The demand continues to outpace
people
supply.
having troubles getting up the hill as they've got a little bit farther. We'll step out of the way. You can see we got another victim.
All right, we're good. Sorry about that.
That's all right. As I was saying, our biggest concern remains with the limited supply of natural gas from our suppliers. The demand continues to outpace supply, and it's going to take time for our suppliers to get their natural gas wells back online. That's why it's so important for everyone to continue to minimize the amount of natural gas they're using. The good news is that Tulsans are doing their part and it's making a difference. The smallest efforts are helping us avoid any widespread outages, be it through lowering their thermostat, postponing a hot shower. Every little bit counts. The most important thing right now is to not let up, is to keep up those efforts, because this truly is a team effort. We're doing everything on our side to maintain the integrity of our system, but it really is successful so far because of the sacrifices that Tulsans are making. So the key is continued vigilance, conserving where possible. This will be critical until the winter storm is over. We do want to commend everyone that's been able to help us continuing to reduce usage. We got a lot of responses from customers yesterday, both online, on social media. We're trying to be as active as we can in terms of answering any questions they have. And the hardworking men and women out there in the field in these very extreme conditions are very appreciative, and we're sending them the words of encouragement that we are receiving. So we appreciate it. Thank you again for the vigilance. The key message here is to just not let up, is to really just keep conserving until we get through this. It's making a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you. Just a couple of things. One, our street team was, again, as they have been every night for the last 9 days, out throughout the night, working to clear main streets here in Tulsa. We saw, I think, a little less, what I'm hearing from the crews out there is I saw a little less than 4 inches of snow on city streets accumulate over the evening. But they are working to get those streets cleared off and as quickly as they can. Probably the big news over the evening related to our water lines, and you'll hear in a moment from the director of our water and sewer department, Clayton Edwards, that the main issue that we've run into is with the prolonged cold weather, we're seeing a historic number of water line breaks. And typically the team would valve those lines down to about half the normal flow so that people whose homes or businesses are serviced by that broken line are still getting water. But the problem that we're seeing is that with so many of those breaks around the city, where the leakage is cutting into our overall supply and storage of water. We're simply losing too much to that leakage collectively. And so starting last night and through today and moving forward, if a water line breaks, teams will shut off the water to that line until they can repair it. And we've got 35 different crews out working around the clock to repair those lines as quickly as they can. There was a rumor going around I started hearing about late last night that people thought we were going to shut the water off the entire city. That is not the case. The only people that will be impacted by water shutoffs are people who happen to be serviced by a line that is broken and leaking water and needs to be repaired. And Clayton will have more to share on that in a moment. I think that maybe one of the reasons that the rumor about shutting off water to the city kind of took off was because of the rolling power outages yesterday. And I can speak to that from firsthand experience. For those who were on this call yesterday morning, you know that my power was cut right in the middle of our news conference. Our power at our house was out for about 2.5 hours and then came back on. Temperature in our house probably dropped about 10 degrees in that period of time. I will say that we're a relatively young family. So for us, it wasn't a big deal. In fact, I would rather have a controlled outage than my initial concern was that there was something wrong with a power line or something in our neighborhood and that could take a longer time to restore. 2.5 hours without power was not a struggle for us. I do have concerns about folks who have medical equipment that they're reliant on. And my hope is that if you know someone, you have a family member or a friend who does have medical equipment that they're relying on for power, please check in on them and keep an eye on if PSO does have to do more of these. Check their map and see if you know folks who live in that area and can potentially offer assistance to them if they need it. We're asking, as I did yesterday and especially this morning while our street crews are out there doing work, to please give them the room that they need to do their work. We continue to have folks trying to drive around plows and endanger the crews and the equipment. And if you want our streets to get cleared, you have to give them room to do their jobs. Similar for our water line repair crews, please give them the room that they need to do their jobs. One last thing on the water lines, a couple things that all of us can do, even if we're not impacted by a service line being out for repair, is be prepared in case your water line does break. Store up some water that could help tide you over until the crew can get there and repair the line. Also, we should all be trying to conserve the water supply for our city. And so I know everyone, at least that I talk with, has faucets dripping right now to prevent them from freezing up. Please make sure that that's a minimal amount of water. You don't have to have it on at a heavy level to protect your pipes. You just need the lowest possible stream to relieve pressure in the pipe and keep some water moving through there. And lastly, if you see our crews that are out there doing this work right now in all parts of the city, please thank them. They're doing really difficult, wet work in sub-zero temperatures, and they all deserve our thanks as a community. A few other updates from the city in general. I would ask that everybody continue to just be patient while our trash crews try to catch up. And especially with this latest snow, it just makes it harder for crews to get back into neighborhoods because we are not clearing neighborhood streets. We're only doing main thoroughfares. That's what we have the resources to clear. And so it's taken them a little more time than it normally would. But if you just leave your cart out by the curb, they will get it. Tulsa Park Community Centers are going to be closed again today, as they were yesterday. The municipal court is open today. Anyone who can't make it to the court will have their case automatically passed 1 week, and no warrants are going to be issued for failure to appear if you can't make it to the court in this weather. We continue to focus on continuity of operations. I will tell you, the Tulsa Police Department is telling me that things have been pretty normal out there in the field, at least as normal as they can be in the kind of temperatures that we've been experiencing here for the last week. The fire department is spent an extraordinary amount of time yesterday responding to water lines that are broken in homes or businesses. You can really help save the time of our firefighters so they can keep themselves focused on responding to fires. We had a pretty significant structure fire yesterday, and also medical emergencies that they've got to get out there and respond to. If you will just know where the shutoff valve for water to your home or business is, and you're able to do that yourself without the fire department needing to come out and respond to that. Again, I just really want to express my gratitude to our team at the city of Tulsa that is out there and has been out there working around the clock in these weather conditions, all of them first responders right now, keeping our city vibrant and thriving in the midst of a really prolonged weather event. And now I'll turn it over to Tim McCorkle.
Thank you. We've been running crews through the night again, mainly addressing the curb lanes, try to keep at least one plow for each route so we can keep the curb lanes open so the citizens can navigate the city as they need to. We've now grouped up our plowing efforts where we're running groups of 4 and 5 plows together so we can take it from the left side of the road, including the turn lanes, and get it moved all the way to the curb lane on the right side of the road in one pass. As we're doing that, we have trucks following these plow trucks, spreading salt on the hills, bridges, overpasses, and intersections. As we get this cleared off and we change shifts, we'll probably address all the level areas also. The snow that we got was more fluffy, so it moves kind of easy. But I just want to stress that, you know, if you have a vehicle that is really not capable of navigating this type of weather, don't get out in it because we've had several issues where, you know, small cars, 2-wheel drive vehicles are getting stuck in the middle of the lanes, and it just makes it tougher for us to get our job done. And plus it's harder on people that have the capability with 4-wheel drives for something to get around. So the quicker we can move through this, the quicker we'll get the streets cleared for the citizens of Tulsa. And we'll continue this effort around the clock. I look forward to a little bit warmer temperatures today so we can get a good melt on this like we did yesterday. And I think we'll be able to get this off the roadways very quickly. I do want to throw one shout out there to some patrons again. I mean, we have so many people that have given us great comments and supplying food and such for us. And we had Hallie Matern and Sean Newman with Krispy Kreme show up at shift change last night with 37 dozen donuts for the crews. So, I mean, these people are just awesome and assisting and feeding the crews that are out there and keeping them going. And I just want to give a big thank you to everybody.
Okay, now we'll bring up Clayton Edwards with our Director of Water and Sewer Department. Clayton, do you have your video capabilities this time?
No, my for some reason my video is not working. That way you can't see how haggard I look anyways. So now let me give you a kind of a brief history. The mayor said it's historical as far as water main breaks, and that's true. Our 10-year average for the month of February is 66 water main breaks. Just on Monday alone, we had 63 water main breaks. So just in one day, we almost reached our monthly average. Currently, we have 123 breaks on the board. Fortunately, only one has been reported so far today. As far as the water level tanks, last night, city crews started valving down lines, as the mayor mentioned. So we've started to see an increase in the water level at our tanks at 61st and Sheridan. It's increased maybe about 1.5 feet to 2 feet since about 2 o'clock this morning. We will continue to valve down lines today, city crews will. We also have about 21 contractors who will get out to start this morning on the actual repairs. One thing I would like to ask, and the mayor has mentioned it, that given all the breaks we still have right now, if we could have our customers try to conserve some water, use water wisely. If they can avoid or delay running dishwasher or the shower bathtub, I think that would help our situation with the water in the tanks. You know, it's, as I said, I think, and the mayor said this, that the crews we have out there are doing an outstanding job in very difficult and quite frankly dangerous conditions. Fortunately, we have not had any injuries or frostbite. We're rotating our crews into trucks, but you know, it's very difficult work out there, and we're fortunate to have crews that are dedicated to provide service to our customers. So I guess questions are toward the end of this meeting, so I'll defer for questions.
Adam, with IMSA, is now going to speak.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. As we sent out in a release yesterday, after PSO began implementing those planned scheduled power outages, our 911 communications center in Tulsa received a number of calls from patients who were understandably concerned about their powered medical devices and refrigerated medicines. The issue is that we need to keep those lines open for people who are truly experiencing a medical emergency. So if in fact we do have more of those planned outages today, the best thing for those folks to do is to call their doctor or healthcare provider, ask how much backup battery power their device has and they can rely on, and then maybe call their pharmacy and see how long that refrigerated medicine can last if the temperature goes up a few degrees. In the last 2 days, we've had a very low number of winter weather related calls. Very happy to report that there were only a handful of cold exposure calls overnight, but since the below freezing temperature started on the 8th, MSA has responded to what amounts to more than 1,000 weather-related calls and more than 500 weather-related transports. Those are just preliminary numbers, and they'll be audited once the month ends. But it just goes to show how busy our MSA medics have been, and just want to give them a big shout out, as well as our fellow first responders and all the people who are working to keep the city running as smoothly as possible during all of this.
Thank you. Pull up Joe Kralachek, Executive Director of TEMA.
Thank you. As we go into near the end of this, we're starting to see the light near the end of the tunnel, expecting temperatures to be back above freezing by the weekend. One of the things that I'm always reminded is that this really is a team effort, and we've had multiple agencies working together and coordinating to basically continue providing services and to help our neighbors get through these situations. I'm just very grateful for all of them. And my message to the public is just hang on just a little bit longer. We will be out of this soon. Temperatures will get back above freezing, and we will begin recovery operations. Over the last 24 hours, some of our operational updates, the EFC has been providing assistance in evacuation of an area nursing home. We were providing logistical support for some of those multi-agency partners that we discussed earlier, and we've been preparing for additional operations throughout the remainder of the day. With the snow continuing, the EOC continues to provide operations at a level 2 status, which is our full activation of all regional and local partners. We are beginning our recovery operational planning with anticipation that we will be out of freezing temperatures soon, and so we will begin plans on how to recover operations and return back to normal operations. We know this has been a trying time for many out in the community, and we want to thank everybody for their patience with our crews and all the employees and city workers, all of our energy sector, as we go through this trying and unprecedented time in history. The message really that we want people to take out of this is, for the next couple of days, we need you to focus on conserving. You need to conserve the energy in your home by keeping your thermostats low, not using more gas and electricity than you need to. Keep your lights down if you're not using them. Conserve your water at your house. Now is probably not a great time to run nine different water uses at the exact same time. So ask yourself before you turn that on that's really necessary. Finally, we want you to focus on conserving yourself. Conserve your energy. This is an incredibly stressful time for many people, and I know that many are eager to get out there and dig themselves out of this and try to resume life as normal. And that's great, but we want you to remember to take frequent breaks throughout this. One of the things that we do see is an increase in heart attacks following ice and snowstorms as people get out and they overexert themselves and digging, shoveling out their driveway, shoveling their sidewalks. If you do need to get out and you do want to do that, our message normally is to stay indoors, but we understand there are some people that are just eager to get out and do something. With the stress of being cooped inside for days and then the exertion, we want you to make sure that you make it out of it to see this weekend freeze or this weekend thaw. And so take those frequent breaks, take it easy on yourself, and conserve your own energy. We'll now open it up for questions. Thank you.
If you guys want to unmute yourself so you can ask questions.
Hi, this is Chris Polanski with KWGS for Clayton. I have just a couple. I know we have 123 breaks. What does that translate into customers or residents? How many folks are impacted by those breaks? And I know from the release that the city's not able to say a timeline for when those repairs will be made. But, should people, if someone turns on their water and it doesn't come on, are we thinking an hour, a day, days? Is there a general time frame we can expect?
Sure. Let me give you an idea as far as customers. Right now, we have about 36 lines valved down. That is impacting about 600 residences and 9 businesses. Now, as we continue with that operation today, that number will obviously increase. As far as, yeah, it's hard to give a time, how long someone will be out of water. Typically with a 6-inch main, which is in residential area, it usually takes about 4 to 6 hours for the repair. That's once we arrive on site. With all the breaks and scheduling right now, we can't say when we will start a repair at a certain time. But you know, if a customer's line or services is off, I would anticipate probably at least a day. They should anticipate with having to go without water.
And just a quick follow-up, Clayton. Do we expect things to get better or worse as these temperatures start climbing?
Well, usually when temperatures start climbing and the ground kind of thaws out, we typically see another rash of breaks as the ground starts shifting again with these cast iron lines. So we anticipate that we will see more breaks coming. Our hope is that we can get a pretty good handle on the breaks we have now. And hopefully, you know, if there's a long gradual warm up, maybe that will minimize our breaks, but we are expecting more breaks.
Thank you.
This question's for Stan. This is Rhett Morgan, Tulsa World. Stan, I'm still trying to put this in context for our readers. A lot of them want to know, how does what we're facing now differ than the summer when we have many consecutive days of intense heat? How is that different with the extreme cold, what you're facing?
Okay, so, you know, typically in the summer, we are what is referred to as a summer peaking utility. So for us to have the type of load, and let me just say right up front, I have not been tracking our load numbers, so I don't know what those are, but I know it's been high. And so it's extremely unusual for us to have this kind of load in the winter, or this kind of customer demand is another way to put it. So that is one thing that's totally different. We would normally expect this kind of stuff in the summer to have this type of load, but in the summer, we wouldn't be faced with these type of fuel and power supply restrictions that have been caused specifically by the cold weather, this extreme cold weather. So that's the main difference, I would say. Did that address your question?
Yeah, if I can follow up, I know you tried to do some modeling during this, but is this prolonged cold? What has prevented your modeling to be able to handle this?
Well, it really is a Southwest Power Pool system-wide issue, and I don't think it has anything to do with our individual modeling. It has to do with the fact that fuel supplies to the power plants throughout the SPP have been curtailed significantly. So there are power plants throughout the SPP footprint that are either at reduced capacity or are offline because of that. So doesn't necessarily have anything to do with our modeling. From what I would say.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, this is Anna at Tulsa World. I'm wondering if Alex might have a chance to speak more to the natural gas supply issues. I know you got a little bit interrupted in the stream earlier. Could you kind of delve a little bit more into the concerns that folks have as far as demand increasing with supplies dwindling?
Yeah, certainly. Let me make sure I'm on mute. Yes. What I would say is that essentially the supplier wells have frozen, and so it takes time in order to get those wells unfrozen. So that impacts the supply. That's the key. So that again, it's a chain of events that occurs where if there's not enough supply, then obviously what we can do on our end is reduce demand. And so that's why our focus has been on that conservation. You could see that the supply, as Stan was mentioning, I mean, it's impacting things across the board for the industry. So the weather obviously being the key culprit here in terms of the unprecedented length of time that we're dealing with, the duration of freezing temperatures. And again, we're not out of it yet. We've got to make it past this week. Hopefully things warm up. But that is the key, really. I mean, it's really the supply demand conundrum that's exasperated by the weather.
I'm not sure if this is a specific question for one of the panelists, but are there discussions being had about larger customers trying to reduce their service? For example, I know the Cherokee Nation business has extended their, for example, their casino closures until Friday to try to alleviate. Is this a discussion that's being initiated by, Mayor Bynum, perhaps city officials or stand utilities, or is this just independently being done?
I can address that for a second from our perspective, if you like. There are a couple of things at play here. So first of all, we did a public appeal for conservation, and that was Sunday night that we first issued that. So that's gone out. And as you just mentioned, with some of the casinos shutting down, that is a fantastic response to lower the energy. But we also have some specific contracts with some of our largest industrial customers that allow us to interrupt them. Before we would get into this type of thing where we're doing the scheduled coordinated outages, we contacted all of our largest commercial and industrial customers, and several of them have, because of the contracts that we have, we alerted them, let them know that we're going to need to interrupt, and they're fine with that. I mean, it's not the greatest thing for their business, but that's part of the contract that we have with them. So in addition to those interruptibles, then we also just have all of our customer service representatives that have what we call managed accounts. They're contacting all of their commercial and industrial customers just to see what they can do to make additional conservation measures there within their own businesses. So there's a kind of a multi-step approach to this and being able to reduce our load.
And just to jump in there to reiterate what Stan said, it's the same thing on the gas distribution side. We started those conversations last week. It's part of our curtailment plan. That is the initial first step that we take. This is the process of trying to avoid a widespread outage, is really to start at the high use users, which is not ideal. It's a curtailment of their usage. So we are extremely appreciative. I know that there's been some stories about some businesses, and we are extremely thankful because, like I said earlier, that is the key to avoid. We're trying to do everything we can to prevent an outage. So that it did start there. That was the first step that we took.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful for everything you guys are doing, all the folks working outside 24/7. Thank you.
Hey, this is Tyler Butler with Channel 8. I got a couple of questions for Clayton here. First up, in the release we got last night from the city, basically said, the supply is low, and that could mean there's an issue if we have emergencies or something, which would compromise emergent public safety and healthcare needs. What exactly does that mean?
Well, one of the reasons for water storage tanks is to have sufficient supply for fires. So we try to maintain sufficient level in our tanks. Fortunately, we have 2 tanks in West Tulsa that are maintaining their level. So, if we have like another fire in downtown area, we have the capability of pumping water to the downtown area to supply the water for any fires like downtown. So, I mean, that's one of the main concerns, is make sure we have adequate supply for fire. We have plenty of treatment capacity. In fact, our treatment plants are pumping as they normally would in summer, similar to what the PSO is doing. So it's just that we want to make sure we have sufficient water for emergencies.
And what happens if people don't conserve their water and just keep operating like usual?
Well, excuse me, if we can't get the tank levels to a sufficient level, then we'll probably ask our customers for voluntary rationing. We certainly don't want to do that, but that is one option we have if we can't get the tanks to fill up.
And if we, if we're looking at water being shut off, I know typically during a storm, it's like, fill your bathtub with water or stuff like that. Are we telling people to do anything like that?
No, it's not really necessary. Only those customers that are on lines that have water main breaks, and we try to notify the customers before we shut the line down to give them opportunity to either fill some jugs or fill the tubs. But for customers who are not affected by breaks, there shouldn't be need to do that.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I do want to offer maybe a little bit of a historical observation on this, and Clayton, tell me if I'm wrong. At least in the time that I've been at the city for 13 years now, we have never shut off water to the city, citywide or anything like that. Even when we were in a period, someone mentioned earlier about it, comparable summer challenges. We've had several times in the time I've been at the city during the summer months when there was a concern about water shortages, and we shifted over to voluntary rationing, as Clayton mentioned, so people could water their yards on alternating days and stuff like that. But right now, again, the main thing that we're focused on is that we have over 120 water line breaks, which up until last night were being allowed to leak in order to allow folks that were serviced by those lines to continue to have water. And so first we want to get out there and shut those off and see what impact that will have. And if we have to ask people for voluntary rationing, then we'll have that conversation. But right now, that is not even, we're not even asking for that. We're just asking for folks to be smart about conservation of water, given this really historic weather event that we're all trying to get through over the next several days.
Alex, this is Red again. I just have one more question. Natural gas is so important to heat homes, but how important is it for the power plants to fuel those power plants? What percentage in the state of power plants are fueled by natural gas?
I don't have that number, and I can get back to you on that. I don't know if Stan knows specifically, but I know that natural gas plants are extremely critical to the power supply. So I'm probably not the best person to answer that since we're a distributor, but I can certainly get back to you and find out unless somebody else on the call has that information.
I'll get your email. Thank you.
Yeah, Alex, I don't have that percentage either, but I can tell you here at PSO that of our power plants, we have 6 of them that are natural gas fired power plants. 1 coal-fired power plant still operating, and then a bunch of wind energy resources. So natural gas is certainly a critical element of our fuel supply and of our power generation. So again, we have gas-fired power plants in Outages, Tulsa, Jinx, out near Anadarko, and in Lawton and down in Waletka. So they're all of varying sizes and such, but that maybe gives you a little bit of perspective on how much we depend on natural gas.
Thanks for the context.
Mayor Biden, this is Anna, Tulsa World. I'm not sure if there is an update or if you have been made aware of any information further about the individual who perished in the freezing temperatures not too far from the shelter.
No, I've not heard anything further on that individual. I have been hearing updates several times a day on the work that's being done in our shelters by the coalition of governmental and nonprofit outreach teams that continue to focus on keeping folks housed. And the main concern I have there and that I'm hearing from those shelter operations is that, the longer this goes, the more you have folks who are getting sick of being in a shelter or even in a hotel room, who are used to living in an encampment and are wanting to leave and are free to do so if they want to. But, as everybody has acknowledged on this call, we still have a ways to go before we're safe for humans to be outside. And so I would just ask that Tulsans continue to provide any support that you can to our outreach teams who are trying to do everything they can to save the lives of our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness during a time when it is of high danger for any human being to be exposed to these kinds of temperatures, even for 30 minutes, let alone trying to live outside.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Does somebody have one more?
This is Megan with Channel 8. I was just trying to see, I know that you guys had a few snowplow trucks out on Monday. What is the current number of how many snowplow trucks are working the streets?
This time, I think we're running right at 39. We did get a couple repaired that will be going out this afternoon on that next shift. So, and as I said, we've got them teamed up in groups of 4 and 5 plowing throughout the city so they can move all lanes of snow at one time when they make a pass instead of just the curb lane.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That concludes today's news conference. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We have a local copy available that we'll be sending out. We'll be posting shortly here on the City of Tulsa's social media pages as well. Thank you, guys.